Hello. Well, I can't quite say Happy New Year yet, but we'll get there soon enough. A new year dawns and a new show begins. Our talking TV. Let's widen the scope. So we might still pile into Doctor Who, and why not? But we will go a lot wider in our spectrum, okay? Like Star Trek, The Avengers, The Saints, Secret Army, Dallas, Take Us Where You Want, Starsky and Hutch. Current issues, yes. Like is television dying? Don't worry, we'll be touching on that. Is it as good as it used to be? That good old chestnut. But we'll also delve into the past too with examples and comparisons. I think that always helps. So, on this New Year's Eve, settle in for some cozy, impassioned chat, as you would expect. And I am not doing it alone. Why would I do that? Let's jump straight away to our friend John. Good to see you.
Aloha.
We did the very first Sense for your show, and
That was about 102 years ago, wasn't it?
I know, and you're looking as though you felt it more than me. I think that's
Yeah, well, I've been feeling it for quite some time because nobody else will.
So good to have you on board on our pilot of Talking TV. We'll have to see if the customers like it or they want us the hook.
Good to be here too, Brendan. Good to be here.
Good. And of course, to make it a triumvirate, we have Boomer Doug, who always lives by that name, by booming. I always have to turn his volume down by about 90%.
Yeah, thank you. It's either my voice or the microphone. I don't know which, but thank you. By the way, Brendan, those credits are fantastic. I love them. And it's lovely to have John here on the first episode. So he's probably our good luck charm, I hope.
Yeah. I mean, I love doing those. I mean, come on, I love an intro. I just love an intro. So yeah, that was good. And it's your logo, of course. You design a logo, so cool
yes,
for that.
Thank you.
So let's get rolling. Is television killing its audience? I know how to start a debate, don't I? You know how to kill it dead.
It's very subtle. That's all you did there.
But as usual, I won't start straight in there. What I will say though is, in Britain, we were brought up with a kids program that I hated. Actually, why don't you just switch off your television set and go and do something less boring instead? I think a lot of people are getting to that point in 2024. I don't know about you, John. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I hesitate to mention that program of my youth because, again, it was a program that Russell T Davies came in and ruined. It was initially a magazine program designed to get children during the summer holidays here in the UK to elicit some ideas that might take them away from the television set, because that's all there was. There was no other screens then. And then Russell Davies, came in and changed it all and turned it into a sort of mythical drama.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was something else you ruined.
I did not know that.
It's true.
Oh, yes.
He takes a great deal of pleasure in telling you that he changed the format of a perfectly functional show all the time and made it very much his own. And well, good for him. It didn't survive much longer after that. Funny that.
Yeah, there was sheep and everything rolling past the. Yeah, I mean, John is spot on. I remember myself. It was funny being a kid. You tuned into Why Don't You? Then you tuned straight out. It never appealed to me. But yes, there was this period when the Welsh got hold of it. I remember because being from the Northeast, oh God, it's Welsh now. And suddenly you had, he joked about sheep going past and he did exactly what John said. And he doesn't like the genre he always inherits. He always has to change it, and he's done that with Doctor Who. We should have known, shouldn't we, John?
Yeah. It was just fascinating that you chose. I don't know if it was serendipity or not with that little reference to that program, but it ties in nicely with where we're at the moment.
Yeah. So just before we do start the debate, which I've promised, and within the topic is television killing its own audience, we will have some tasty items. We want to laugh today. It's New Year's Eve, and as I think Stephanie Barrett is saying in the thread, if you're still going in 2 hours, will you be doing a New Year's Eve countdown for Eastern Australia? I don't know if we're going to go that long. It depends if you're happy with what we're doing. No, if we
want us to stay, yeah.
But I know we've all got limits. But the truth is, as well as the big debate, classic sense for you, we'll also be ducking and diving with some laughs and lighter items, segments on what scared you, childhood memories. Oh, there's a whole list. So, just before we do that, lads, I just thought we should kind of get in there first by hopefully having a laugh. I mean, when you look back on 2024, what's your highlight in TV and what's the downer? Let's start with the highlights first, I suppose. A good show that still shows TV can do it.
Comedy or drama, or doesn't, or
Anything,
both?
anything, because I think we're all desperate now.
Yeah. Well, I had a few. There's two comedies that stood out for me. There was Only Murders in the Building, which is a Steve Martin show written by Steve Martin, which is really funny, and Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David. They're two real classics. Dramas, yeah, there were a few. There was a few here and there. I guess what I'm finding with television at the moment, that there's a lot of stuff that's very watchable, but it doesn't have what I call repeat value. Once you see it, you don't want to dip back into it. Whereas the classic stuff, I can watch like a favourite track on a CD, or well, there you go, CD. That showed my age. But the stuff that's on now, it's kind of one and done for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
John, what about you? Any highlights in 2024 TV?
Struggling, really struggling. But we can go and discuss this later on about how I how I spend my television viewing time now. It tends to be in the rearview mirror more so than anything's being used these days.
Yeah.
But I have to say, in terms of reality shows, I did enjoy The Traitors this year. I thought that was a new spin on a reality show. I thought there was much else they could do, sort of Big Brother style, but they managed to pull something out of the hat, which entertained me. And I like the idea of give us a few episodes a week, and 4 weeks it's over, it's done, rather than going on for months and months and months. So that idea of you see it now, it's very ephemeral. It's here today, gone tomorrow. You don't go back and rewatch this, but yeah, it proves that television can still have appointment to view stuff, because you have to watch it in the moment, otherwise you get spoiled. So yeah, if I'm going to give any thumbs up at all, I'll give it to The Traitors and Claudia Winkleman, who does a very, very good job of hosting that show. Her tongue's very firmly in her cheek.
Yeah.
I love her. I love that woman. I mean, she's really. Traitors wasn't very big here. Our version in Australia wasn't big.
I saw your version, Doug. I saw both seasons of that, and yeah, it was a bit cheap looking, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's not good, but Claudia is fantastic. I'd watch her in anything.
Well, my highlights, and I'm going to dovetail it with the starter, and I'll have the starting pistol for our discussion, because they proved the point. So, for example, I had a good think. SAS Rogue Heroes, I loved. It did about 8 episodes set in the Second World War on BBC One, believe it or not. There wasn't DEI in sight. There wasn't any lecturing going on. It was how the SAS were born. And there's a second series coming out on New Year's Day. And to me, that was good old TV, just giving us the story, good, interesting characters. They were all a bit rough and ready, as the SAS you would expect to be. And it just got on with it.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, well, I get worried, as series develop, that the BBC might start to then play with them.
Yeah.
However,
and they will. Don't worry, they will.
Yeah. Even so, that was one example, and there's my point: is television killing its audience? Well, stop lecturing, stop blah blah blah. I mean, we'll get there in a second. Another one was Schitt's Creek in Canada. Loved Schitt's Creek. That was funny. And it had really warm characters, and it just got on with it. My other one, Fellow Travelers, it was about McCarthyism in America. I can't remember what it was on now, but it was a closet gay character working in Washington behind the scenes. It was very good. And House of the Dragon. So there you go. I think there's stuff out there, but... And of course, the House of the Dragon tells me episodic still works.
Yeah, it's interesting though that all most of the examples we're talking about, and I just thought of one too. Slow Horses with Gary Oldman is fantastic, but they're all on streaming services. There's very little on terrestrial TV that, well, I don't know about in England, but here in Australia, particularly now in the summer, all we're watching is sport, which I'm not into, unfortunately. But but the terrestrial TV seems to be. I don't believe it's dying. I think it's the content they bring up, because we've already had the discussion about what Wallace and Gromit, Gavin and Stacey did on Christmas Day. So, as John was saying, if there's event TV, appointment TV, people will watch.
Well, let's just start with this. I mean, it's New Year's Eve, but on Christmas Day in Britain especially, you had Joy to the World, Doctor Who. And we're going to just start with that, everybody. So if you're not Doctor Who fans, don't worry, we will widen the scope. But this is a topical example. You had this Joy character who went on Christmas Eve to a fairly run-down hotel, it looked like to me, a very boring room, talked to a fly. She was a bit twee, and she reminded me of Star Trek Discovery's Tilly. What they normally do is they get a girl, a female actress who's just a bit overweight. I'm not wanting to knock anything like that, but and they make them always the bubbly character, a bit wacky, because if you're over, it seems to be TV always makes a slightly overweight person. They're always the jokey one. So she talks to flies. She's happy to become a star and commit suicide. Very, very kooky. And it reminds me of Tilly in Star Trek Discovery, where she was all a bit bumbly and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, this is the problem. TV, they think they're so progressive, but they stereotype people in other bad ways too.
Very much so. Very much so.
I can't talk about Star Trek. I don't watch it.
Yeah. But what did you think? Did you think, John, that Joy was a well-rounded, engaging character? Because everybody in my thread the other day, it was Anita that we're talking about.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I have no idea if Joy was well-rounded or not. We never got enough chance to meet her, because Stephen Moffat created another character which she obviously fell in love with when creating the script, and spent 20 minutes with her, and that's fine. But it's very indicative of where Doctor Who is now, both as as a program being run by people who believe it's theirs, and what they say goes. So you have a writer who decides that here's what I'm going one way, but I've changed my mind, I'm going to do this, and a showrunner who allows them to do it. So it eventually ends up a hodgepodge of nothing at all. So just purely on the character of Joy, no idea, because I wasn't given a chance to know her. She was a MacGuffin. She was there purely and utterly to fulfill that little bit at the end where she becomes the Christmas star. That was it. That's all she was there for.
Now, Mad Mackham, up the coast from here in Sunderland, says Schitt's Creek, which I just mentioned, it's all relevant, dealt with sexuality and gender, race and demographic differences marvellously, only to aid the plot, never to lecture or impose views. Shows you can deal with issues. So, yeah, it can be done, and that's my point. That's why we started where we did. So, yeah, I'm not impressed with Doctor Who's version of Tilly. And as you know, I've talked about the ratings, and the ratings tell us, is television dying, or can it still sustain? And it can survive, give quality. You can see there, Gavin and Stacey and Wallace and Gromit proved the point so ably.
Of course, Brendan, this notion, I'm sorry to kind of cross you,
that's all right.
Specifically on that point, we were told 40, 50 years ago, with the invention of the VCR, that cinema was dead, that people wouldn't get out in the snow and the rain to go and watch cinema anymore. But you produce a movie, people will want the cinema experience. Television is the same. You produce the goods, people want to sit around, particularly on days like Christmas, knowing that the rest of the nation is sitting watching and having the same experience as they are. It's very much a communal thing. But unfortunately, this whole notion that television is dying now is in fact just a ruse by people who produce pretty rotten television to cover the fact that nobody's watching it.
Yeah, and that's why, I started my saloon the other day by saying, look, people normally shout down in flames. All these excuses are fired off at us. And as I really tried desperately to say, look, if you're saying television's dying, it's therefore dying. But the stats were not in favor of that argument. And as I showed here, 4.36 million people, 10 minutes after Doctor Who finished, tuned in. Yeah. Now, the only logic I can get from that is they are there, they just want quality TV. So our debate today on whether TV's dying or not is, well, what is quality TV? When was it? What examples have we got? You know, that's where we're going to go with this, isn't it, lads?
Yeah, but what the thing about it is we might not be able to define exactly what it is, but by looking at statistics and viewing figures, we know what it isn't. And what it isn't is what, in particular, the Doctor Who is, what dished up to us at Christmas time and last season. But unfortunately, these people aren't listening. They're just not listening.
Now,
it's arrogant.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're feeding me. I've got to flick a bit. I've got 2 articles I might dip into here and there just to help us through.
Mm-hmm.
The Spectator had one in November 2023, so it's you know, fairly topical, on the death of TV. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, because it links with just what John's just said, really, and the point they were making was mass take-up by arty people of the tenets of social justice. Ideology is terrible for art, that they start to just, they don't present with us what we need anymore on TV. So, for example, here's another criticism from the Spectator writer, that all we are getting now is banality and sentimentality of scripting. Writers steer away from originality of thought. You get soul-crushing didacticism to let people feel seen. You know, representation, darling. You get anodyne yodeling of characters, feelings, and a babyish emotional range. She wrote this November 2023, and the Joy character on Christmas Day had babyish emotional range, didn't she? She was very immature. Oh, I'm going to talk to a fly. Oh, you're a naughty person. And I thought, we're infantilizing the audience.
Yep.
And so that paragraph there, I thought, you are on the money. That's Christmas Day Doctor Who.
Yeah, it is.
It depends on why. The fundamental question is, why do people make television programs, drama, comedy, documentary? Inform, educate, entertain. You know, and unless you're ticking one of those boxes, you have to ask yourself the question, why are you doing it? Why are you making this program? Because inform, educate, entertain, fine, but not lecture, not tell, not pointy finger stuff. And unfortunately, too much television nowadays, and a particular Doctor who's very much at the top of that tree now, doesn't see itself as, we're here to entertain, we're here to make the kids go behind the sofa, to make the adults feel, oh, there's a thrill of nostalgia, to enjoy a good rollicking story together with the thrills and spills of action and adventure. In a nutshell, that's what Doctor Who exists to do. No, what writers feel nowadays is, well, if I can do that, that's great, but I got a message to get across here first, and this program's my vehicle to do that. Absolutely not. You go and invent your own program. You go and write your own novel. You go and write an article. You go and do any one of those things, and I'll access that. But on Christmas afternoon, late afternoon, when I sit down with my family, I want to be entertained, not lectured at. And unfortunately, that's what Doctor Who is now. Unlike Gavin Stacey and unlike Wallace and Gromit, who did exactly what it was supposed to do, entertain people on Christmas Day. And that explains, and this isn't rocket science, that explains exactly why the viewing figures are the way they are. Because Doctor Who at the moment is pointy finger stuff.
Well, John, we were talking about this. I wanted to show you, John, because we were talking about this yesterday. If you look at what's in red there, it says she's arguing, you know, good and bad TV. Why would we want to watch for hours as a TV show experiences of Me Too, then COVID, when we've just been through it all firsthand? And we were talking about this yesterday, that why Stephen Moffat has admitted that it was a late redraft that included the COVID element. So it wasn't in there.
Wasn't he clever? Wasn't that clever of him? Well done, Stephen. That was really good. On Christmas afternoon, to untriggered, unsignaled, to put that message out there to people who may be on their own, who had their Christmas taken away from them by losing a loved one only 4 years previously, to have that land on them because Stephen Moffat felt he had to say something about the Tories and something about Boris Johnson. It's a downright disgrace, and I hope he hands him head into it. If Stephen Moffat, and I hope he didn't lose anybody during COVID, and I hope he didn't, I pray he didn't, but if he didn't, it shows how tactless a writer he was, because many did, and would have sat down in what may have been their first normal Christmas and had come crashing back into them again totally unpredictable that they would do that.
Yeah,
Well,
spot
David-
on. I think I did something similar on Detox. He was trying to be clever, but he didn't allow for the fact that all the people that lost people or were triggered by it, and or if he did realise he was being an absolute asshole.
Absolutely. And nowadays, we're warned constantly about, when we watch an episode of Rising Damp or Dad's Army, that be careful, something in this might trigger you before any of these are shown to us. But Stephen Moffat can come clod hopping in on Christmas Day of all days and reintroduce heartbreaking memories to people who may not want to be reminded of them, just because it virtue signaling and made him feel good.
Now, David Mullen here, who we've had a few debates online. I'm going to spend an hour or so griping about Doctor Who non-stop. It makes me feel good, followed by another hour griping about Doctor Who. And then another. I don't know, are you having a go at us, David Mullen? Hey, we're starting with the topical nature of it. You can't do a debate about is television dying without starting to say where we are today. Top 6 Doctor Who was on Christmas Day. Let's not deny it. And then we look back at better examples. We've just started this program with our best choices of 2024 and why. So,
and anyway, I've not spoken for an hour. I've spoken for a couple of minutes, David Mullen. A couple of minutes. That's the first I've said on the subject. So, meh.
and it's a relevant point. And I remember we were talking about this again yesterday, John, weren't we? I said, the trigger warning thing is important. You can't be pious on one hand and have all this nonsense about 70s TV as if it was blooming evil. Although in a moment we might be proving it wasn't that bad, actually. I mean, I find it fascinating, for example. Let's just do the first example here. When I was looking at all the old TV programs, the Bionic Man we had first, $6 Million Man. But you know what? Straight after that, we had the Bionic Woman, and the Bionic Woman, this is the 70s, was more popular. And we sci-fi fans, we watched the Bionic Woman in bigger numbers than the $6 Million Man. We weren't sexist. Yeah. And so all this nonsense with trigger warnings and everything, some 70s TV was pioneering, if you don't mind, and, leave it alone. Nonsense.
And 60s TV as well.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah.
So
look at the Avengers. Emma Peel in the Avengers. I mean, my goodness, what a strong woman, and very attractive too. But that was a really good role model.
So we had in this article, it was mentioning the moment there seems to be a churning out of low nutrient dramas by the ton load. She sat down in November 2023 and she said, with all the choice we've got with streaming and everything, you can easily binge watch. But she said she finds there isn't much out there, and the quality's not there. That the balance between quality and quantity seems to have gone now. It's more quantity than quality.
Yeah, well said. That's how I feel.
Now, she was in the thick of, the Hollywood strikes in 2023, and she said, obviously, there's now going to be a dearth of ideas. However, she did say that in the old days, because she said the golden age of TV, she thought in a way was 2000. And she said, because then you had a lot of choice. And you remember when Hollywood actors started making TV specials and TV series instead. And so TV was having a kind of golden age, was her argument. But she says basically it was 2000 was also handy because you had a bottleneck of ideas and energy. And since then, because it's now become just a kind of conveyor belt, they've run out of the fresh ideas.
Yeah, but I'm not so qualified to speak about this because I watch very little TV drama these days because I just find it also samey.
It is very samey.
It is, yeah. I enjoy something that stands out. What was the one in this last year that ran into all the trouble? The stalking one on Netflix.
Baby Reindeer.
Baby Reindeer, yeah. That was different. That was trying something new and all that. And, it ran into trouble because of the veracity of the story and all the rest of it. I still enjoyed it as a piece of drama. I thought the acting was good. I thought the way it was constructed and told the story, it was very good too. But there just tends to be a similarity amongst a lot of TV dramas. I've been signalled towards, for example, The Day of the Jackal, to watch that by members of my family. So I sat down and watched some clips elsewhere and thought, absolutely under no circumstances can I watch this because it just looks like everything else these days. So the bangs, flashes, twists, turns. What you see is not necessarily what's happening. I, I, I just want something a bit more linear, you know.
Yeah.
Just tell me a
Yeah.
story and let me follow it for myself without trying to uh, impress me with how clever your writing was. I spent some time watching old DVDs of a very creaking, and it is very creaking, old ATV series called Thriller, which was made in the 70s. And it's very, very,
Oh, Thriller was
yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Fantastic.
And you can see a lot of what's coming in these stories. They're very box standard stories.
Yeah.
But you know what? They tell a story, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the end of it, you come away feeling quite sated, quite satisfied that you've watched essentially a thriller. You're not saying, wait a minute, I have to go back and watch that again, or do I have to think about what actually she was saying and how it related to him and all this sort of stuff. So what I would like is a bit more linear storytelling, not so much cleverness, not so much this idea I can stop this, rewind it, see that again to make sense of what happened 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes into the future. Moffat did a lot of this, and a lot of that
Yeah.
Doctor Who. A lot of writers have subsequently
John.
copied him. So what we've ended up in this bit of a morass now that they copy each other.
John, what you were saying then? It raises an interesting point about 2024 compared to the past, right? So taking the point you've just said, when I get people criticizing a thumbnail or some topic I'm picking, those who are critical of us dinosaurs, so to speak, normally tend to say stuff like, well, when I watched it for the 5th time, I saw this. What you need to do is go and watch it again. And I'm going, hold on a minute. 60s, 70s TV, we didn't have that capability.
No.
In other words, in the first 10 minutes, it had to grab us. And it had to grab us to watch again because you couldn't record and repeat. So, in other words,
but also, Brent, even nowadays, most people will not watch it for a second time, let alone a 5th time. They will watch it, they'll consume it, they'll leave it. So it should be absolutely available to them and understandable to them on their first viewing. They shouldn't have to rewind, rewatch on a second or third time. But unfortunately, modern day television is all about how clever are we rather than let's entertain you. I should be able to watch in the same way I walk into a cinema, watch a movie and leave, and that's my one chance to appreciate the movie. Television should be the same as that. I should be able to sit through it, enjoy it, watch it, understand it, either like it or dislike it, and come away from it. This idea of 5 times of watching is for nerds, freaks, and for fans and all the rest of it. Not everybody, whether you're in 20,
but it doesn't,
or 1977.
but it doesn't make sense either, does it? If you went to the theatre, you don't go, hold on, I'm going to go again tomorrow because I think I need to.
That's what I just said with the cinema. You got one time. That's it. And away you go.
But this is what I mean. Why do we apply this strange rule to TV? And it's an argument that actually, I think when people criticize us and saying you need to do multiple viewings, they're actually telling us that the plot is weak, that it's the style or the directions fail to grab us. I just want to bring in a few people because they've got all their ideas, and this is about golden TV, whatever that is in your eyes. Michael Herbert said the Beiderbecke trilogy. Yes. We had triple jazz musical. I did love Coupling back then. That was Stephen Moffat. He does like his sex. Yeah. Reese Roder, good to see you. Did you see the modern remake of Bionic Woman with the woman from EastEnders? Yeah. That was
she the one that was also in Doctor Who? That
Planet of the Dead.
Yeah, that was rubbish as well.
Yeah,
it wasn't good with it.
No. Lindsay Wagner did a better job. We've got good old Anthony Parkinson saying Emma Peel. Go back to the Avengers. You know,
Emma Peel forever.
Doug, why was the Avengers so distinctive of its time, and why they've tried to remake it? Of course,
I know the movie was terrible. I think it captured a moment. It was a very stylized version of England. It was fabulously acted. It was very witty. I grew up in the Emma Peel and Tara King era. only just rediscovering the Honor Blackman series. I bought a box set recently, and I'm rediscovering the Honor Blackman series, which is really nice and really watchable, but it's a totally different series. It was all done on videotape, and didn't have the production values. Having said that, some of the stories are fantastic. To answer your question, in my opinion, it was very well written. It had a lovely visual feel to it. It had a really strong female character. There was great chemistry between the two lead actors. It had a banger of a theme tune. Remember when theme tunes were memorable and you could hum them? What's happened to good theme tunes? And it just had a lovely stylized feeling, and it was just a bizarre, lovely show to watch. I still watch them now. It's just.
But this is the other thing. It's like when I started this little program, this Sense for You, tiny little hobby. When I branched out and started to do the saloons, I just wanted a 60s vibe. And of course, I made the intro a bit longer. And most people just think they can either fast forward or just get on with your chat. But the trolls, who I assume are sometimes the younger ones who, like we say, haven't been trained in this kind of, style of TV. And you were talking about the intros and the music that we always thought was distinctive. I can't do an intro to a daft program like this without doing some music I like. So basically, when I did the saloons, I remember some of the critics would say, your intro is BS, it's too long, it's too this. And I thought, do you know what? We were brought up in the 60s and 70s TV where the intro and the music set a vibe.
Yep.
It got you in the mood.
Yes.
Got you in the mood for the whole show, yeah.
That's one of the worst things about modern streaming, where it gives you the option to, avoid skip the opening and then skip the credits.
Yeah.
So first of all, we're not being asked to get ourselves in the mood. And then second, and perhaps more importantly, we're being asked, forget the facts that creative people made this, not important. Just get you on to the next episode because we're terrified in case we lose you. And that's essentially why modern television, television was doing this long before streamers, truncating end credits and opening schedules and not making themes part of the process of program making. They've been doing that for quite some time now. But I think it's quite disrespectful. When I sit down and watch Doctor Who now, I never, even on DVD, I never fast forward any of the credits, opening or closing. I sit there and take in the whole experience. And I use that credit sometimes as a natural break to make up with a loo. Yeah. I'm getting to that age now where I need a loo break. So I use that for that. But whether or not I do, I still factor in this notion that I have a beginning and then I do the end credits. If only for the fact I want to look at the credits and see what lovely people made this lovely program I'm watching too.
Yeah.
Yes,
now you know the article. She was saying that people need to feel represented. So if you're now, John, of that age where you need to go to the loo a lot, do you need a character to represent you?
So piss a lot.
Yes. Well, I've got. So I just thought, because this is the mentality of this. I need to feel represented. I've got a bunion and I've got a wart on my nose. I need to be represented.
I want a character who every time he walks into a room has to immediately leave it again because he needs to go.
And yes, it's John. Forget story. It's more about representation.
Where are the commodes? I'm sitting on one now, so I don't have to leave. Where are they in modern television? They're not. I don't feel represented.
Could it be a time commode? A time commode, bigger on the inside, and
depends how long your stream is. Sometimes it has to be.
So JWC Reviews, you've joined us when we're being naughty. It is New Year's Eve, and we are doing our critique of television. We've used Doctor Who already, but God, you could go everywhere. Or Claude, before I lose it, because the threads nowadays are so lively. Claude, hello, Michael. I know you're not feeling too good. So hope you're better soon. Did you ever see The Original Survivors by Terry Nation? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It was good. Now, you see, that opening sequence, I loved.
Yeah.
You know, the passport stamps and then the man flakes out and you see...
It tells a story, Brendan. It tells a story about what you're about to watch, and that's good opening titles. Now, I watched the remake as well. It wasn't bad. It was nowhere near as good as the original. And Survivor season 3 is very much a curate's egg as well. The original, I mean, but it moves at a snail's pace. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with snails and their pace. Just sit back and let it wash all over you. You enjoy the experience, enjoy the writing, enjoy the acting.
Yeah, and it's world building. And I will still say it, a good introduction to those old classic shows. You got the world, as you say, you got the credits. Sometimes it depends which way around they did it. So you got the world, you got the plot, you sometimes got the jeopardy, you got the whole thing. You got this, and actually, because none of us could watch and rewatch and record and do all the stuff that nowadays is an indulgence, you actually had an opening sequence that actually told you what the show was about if you'd never seen it before. So it helped grab
Gilligan's Island, they tell you the whole plot, don't they? So
yeah, I remember.
So you know exactly what's happened.
I remember. I hope you saw it in Australia, Doug. But I know you lived here as well. But did you see this, John? It was on ITV in the, I don't know, early 1980s. So as I'm coming,
we were a middle class household. We never watched ITV. Do you mind?
Oh well, it was my grandma. And I'm coming home from school, so we used to go to our grand's near the school before I got on the bus home, so I could have lots of sweets, and then our mum would kill us later. So basically, we'd get all our sweets at our grand's, and she'd have on the telly. It was a kids' program, really, the Mysterious Islands or the Lost Islands. And the opening sequence goes on and on and on. He sounds like Roger Whittaker singing for ages. He has a verse after verse after verse, and he goes, it was a bit like one of those, I forgot what it was called. You know, you could be young and go on one of those tall ships around the world.
Yeah.
Operation Raleigh or whatever it was. And they did one of them. Then there was a shipwreck. Then they go to a lost island. Then there's a man in a purple hood, a bit Mask of Mandragora. And he's in a little kind of sedan chair. But it's about 5 verses. And so it sets it up. And then the show's over.
I do vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that at all. I must have been out.
Right.
No, my family loved ITV. My mum was a huge fan of soap operas in particular, and Coronation Street was a particular favourite of them. And even that's something else that's been battered into the ground these days with overkill. Much cherished British soap operas have become mere shadows of their former selves as well.
Mind you, while we've got Doug there, let's have our first dig at Australia. You've just mentioned that, John. It's just prompted a thought. The Young Doctors, that opening sequence was.
God,
I mean,
dear
me, it was. Now, Mad Mackham in Sunderland, and nobody in my generation avoided being scared by the opening titles of the Temura People. Dudley Simpson's music.
That was fantastic.
Oh, it was fab. Do. I mean, honestly.
It was really good.
It was. And again, it set
Let's forget about the Young Doctors, shall we?
Yeah. It set a vibe, though. And Mad Mackham is on a roll. Sapphire and Steel. Jamie will give that a shout out.
I saw a bit of Sapphire and Steel this morning when channel hopping.
Did you really?
It was on Rewind TV, which is again. It was one about the Foundling, or the Changeling, opening episode of that with, and I had the wonderful David Collington as Silver. But the thing is, again, this is another channel which has just recently appeared on British television sets, and again, it's a purely nostalgia television, and it's doing very well because it's giving people like Talking Pictures TV. It's giving people old stuff, and it's finding an audience. It's finding an audience because people are just fed up with new stuff, and they want good stories, well told, and at a pace they can enjoy. Most not.
Yes.
Well, we'll park our big discussion of television, what state of play it's in, and we'll have a nice tasty one. I'm using movie posters of Carry On movies. I know this is Talking TV to hit themes. So this is a nice little tasty theme, lads, and see what everybody can say in the thread as well. Mm-hmm. So I've called it Carry On Teacher, but this is about your childhood. shows in your childhood that were so distinctive for whatever reason. I mean, it was great TV, or you couldn't miss it, or it's inspired you. So Thread, get going now. I'm going to just shout out a few quick ones as John and Doug think. I was just thinking The Prince and the Pauper with Nicholas Lyndhurst. I loved this idea that 1 minute you're poor from Middlesbrough, and then you can be a prince. You just have to do a swap. The good old doppelganger. Yeah, and then The Phoenix and the Carpet. The Secret Garden. What the hell was that Heidi up to as well in Heidi with her granddad? And I'll just tell you one more, and then it'll have got Doug and John fired up on childhood memories of TV. The one I want to mention, this is when it was all great, it's Sunday night. We've got babysitters. Mum and Dad are out. And I always remember the opening sequence and the music to Shoestring with Trevor Eve. And
that was a great show.
Yeah, it was a great detective series. It was offbeat. I think it was set in Bristol. Yeah. And he was a radio DJ or something, wasn't he? A radio presenter.
Yeah.
He was a private ear. They called him a private ear because he's a private eye on the radio.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yes. And so it's funny because it was Sunday night, and I always associate it being school in the morning, early to bed. The babysitters were like the bloody, SS. And you had to go to bed, and it was always timed with the blooming music. So the slow style of Shoestring theme music associates me with you've got school tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, what's thoughts of childhood TV?
You mentioned, I'm talking about associations with bedtime. Although it wasn't Sunday, it was a Monday, and being told to go to bed as the Sweeney came on at 9 p.m. on ITV. I always associated, and I used to lie awake and hear it in the distance. Yeah. And the end music of the Sweeney was always different from the opening titles. It was more of a sort of softer version of the theme tune.
Yeah.
But I always associated that with this adult program which was being withheld from me at school. And so that association has remained to this day. So whenever I see old reruns of the Sweeney on ITV4 or wherever it's playing, I associate it with being in bed and it being withheld from me, because usually some blonde lovely was shaking her boobies at Dennis Waterman from a bed as the place was getting raided, and that's the reason why it wasn't fit for my little under 10 eyes, But I remember that. You talking about Sundays as well, Brenda, reminds me. I used to love ITV Sundays because 7:15 would be either a game show or a sitcom.
Yeah.
Family Fortunes or On the Buses or whatever, and then you'd get an upstairs downstairs or one of these Lily Langtry, Edward VII, and then that would roll into a sitcom late at night, usually Two's Company with Elaine Stritch and Donald Sinden, No Honestly or Yes Honestly with Pauline Collins and John Alderton. So those Sunday nights were very precious to me. Yeah. As of having a really good, well-scheduled and structured, evening on television. You've got game show, sitcom, drama, sitcom, bedtime. All the wonderful
lovely memories, John. That's really lovely.
And just before I do come to Doug with your memories, childhood memories, just to finish off John's point there, John, again, all that list you gave. Did we need representation of ourselves?
No, that's no point. This is the point. People, and guess what? People watch. They weren't actively going out to insult. They weren't actively going out to deny the existence of certain sections of society. They just made good television, and it represented what people wanted to see. It wasn't racist. It wasn't sexist. It wasn't misogynistic. Most of the time, admittedly, in places in 70s television, just like a lot of modern day television can insult me too. And so it did that. But nonetheless, it didn't set out to do that. It just set out to entertain and allow you to relax into your Sunday evening or your Saturday evening before you had to get up for work or school the next day. What's not to like?
Exactly. And Doug, just as I come to you, the thread is on fire on the first item, childhood memories. So Paul Roach, I'll go through these and then Doug, you join in afterwards. Paul Roach, Into the Labyrinth. Caclud, Terrorhawks and the Tripods.
Oh,
Neville
yes.
Moondial. I mean, there's a lot of love for the Terrorhawks and Jerry Anderson, and there's no surprise there. Lots on the Terrorhawks, SG, everybody. Children of the Stones.
I got that on DVD. Still good, still very good. Yeah.
Matt Pott in Australia, Super Gran. Was that Billy Connolly?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and Gudrun Muir, who played Super Gran, just died this past year. Bless her. She was, and you think it was 40 years ago. She was like 40 odds, playing 80 odds. But bless her, she just died this year. Yeah.
Rent-A-Ghost as well. Dead Man, the Goodies. The Australians go wild about the Goodies.
Fantastic.
Ace of Wands. Oh God, yes. Now Divine and Dragon. You're listening Starsky and Hutch and Kojak. Childhood programs. My God, you were led up late. Robin of Sherwood. Which one? Michael Praed or Jason Connery or earlier?
Michael Praed forever.
Earlier. So anyway, Bullseye. Yes, tea time. My great aunt Katie, bless her. Sunday tea time. She came to have dinner, Sunday dinner, and then she went back. And she was
back to her cage. Where did you keep this poor woman?
Yeah, she was, and she was taken away. They used to call her the Queen Mum. She was the same age as the Queen Mum, and so the bus drivers always said, "Oh, it's the Queen Mum." Now she always was asleep. Old person, asleep in chair. She's had a nice Sunday lunch, and she's asleep. And we were all tiptoeing around with our remote control. I think we had a remote control in about 1980, 81. And we were trying to say, change the channel, get it off. Because as soon as she heard the Bullseye music, she was awake. And that's it. You couldn't switch over. And she adored Jim Bowen. And you thought, no, we're trapped. So anyway.
Divine and Dragon mentioned a memory there, which is an American one, which I think is an excellent choice. Kolchak, the Night Stalker, is great.
That was really one of mine.
Good stuff. So well done, Dragon.
Yeah. And my final one, because a lot of people have suddenly said, banana splits. It's in my opening sequence. Anyway, over to you, Doug, on one of your childhood memories.
So many, mate. So many. Fond memories from childhood, Fireball XL5, Stingray, the Thunderbirds, which is still being shown in Australia in the mornings to this day. It's never stopped being shown.
Wow.
A lot of the shows that I have fond memories for weren't kids shows. I guess I was allowed to stay up. Man from U.N.C.L.E., The Saint, The Baron, I Spy. I mean, so many. The Avengers, obviously. I mean, I love The Avengers. All those ITC shows from the 60s and the 70s. My favourite show of all time, I was 12 when I first watched it, was The Persuaders. Roger Moore, Tony Curtis, that show.
Another great theme tune.
And another John Barry, fantastic theme tune. Yeah. Oh, my God, that show. I did a whole thing on my channel. That what I loved about it was the stories were a bit iffy, but Roger Moore and Tony Curtis ad-libbed all the way through it. Apparently, one of the reasons was that Tony Curtis was always stoned and he'd go off on his own tangent. So Roger had to keep up with him. But if you watch it, Roger's never been better because he was having to keep up with Tony Curtis. And watch it just for the banter between those two guys. It's absolutely fabulous. It's my favourite.
Can I just say, because Claude Michael has mentioned 70s sitcoms, and I've got Are You Being Served, for example, in our opening sequence. Now, the thing is, while we mentioned trigger warnings and why television might be dying because of the way they treat us as if we can't cope, instead of giving us complex, clever TV, the point Claude's making here, I want to just add to it, because he said even controversial shows like Love Thy Neighbour he watched, and I did, and I will always say the truth. We watched Till Death Us Do Part, we watched Love Thy Neighbour, we watched them. Now,
mind your language.
But I also want to say that when it comes to stuff like Are You Being Served, which is the obvious one, and others, there were jokes about gays, there were, fairy and all of it. I have to say, I didn't know what I was then, but do I want those TV programs censored? No. Do I want them taken off? No. I don't take offense because at that time everybody was blooming closeted. It was a different time. And
Absolutely.
I actually can cope with John Inman. I can cope with him saying I'm free and he minces away. I have no problem. And
Do
so,
you know, though, they never actually refer to him as gay. It's
no.
never that overt. It's just skirted around.
But the point is, there's. I don't take offence. It was just a different
No,
time, and
tough.
yes, they're using language and they're hinting at stuff about gay
Yeah.
people, which is out of order, really. But it doesn't.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. I still like the show, and this is
Mm.
what I can't. This is what I resent about how everything's treated. I mean, John, where do you stand on this one? You know, stereotypical characters. And yes, sometimes it may say things about sexuality or gender that's, you wouldn't want to repeat nowadays. However, I still might like the program or the character or the plot.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if you haven't censored DVDs and physical media, so you can still go and buy and watch this stuff. They just won't broadcast much of it, or they'll edit it. One of our Christmas rituals is to watch an Agatha Christie called Evil Under the Sun, and BBC Two showed it a couple of days ago, and we enjoyed watching that again. But there's a line in that, and it's a line which really is innocuous. It means nothing. It's one of the, and hopefully I can see here without getting us into trouble. That one of the characters says, I can see Brennan getting a bit strange here. It's fine, don't worry. Talking about the name of a play. And the name of the play is It's Not Right and It's Not Fair. And the character says, oh, it sounds like a black man's left leg. You know, and you go, well, but they've edited this out. And I go, well, I struggle to see what's racist about that. You know, I just struggle. Why is someone, probably a white middle-aged man, you know, has decided that that's offensive and must be removed? It's still there on the DVD, it's still there on the video, it's still there if you want to see it in the cinema. But for BBC Two viewers, that was deemed to be offensive. And so therefore, it was clipped and taken out. Don't know why. Now, a whole lot of stuff, I never found Love Thy Neighbour funny, so I wouldn't watch it. I watched an old episode of Hilda Baker sitcom called Notting Hill Nelly recently, and there's an Asian character in that, and there's a couple of remarks made, which I won't repeat, about his colour. And he makes them, and it really is, it's jarring. Now, at that point, you can see, oh, ouch. Yeah, thank God we're beyond that now. So you can understand there are occasions where you have to go in and prune or think about what you're doing, because we have moved on since then. But at the same point, we have become overly sensitive to referencing whether it's someone's sexuality, someone's colour, someone's gender, to the extent that we come in and go, absolutely, we can't do that, panic stations. But then again, what we can do is come in and spoil someone's Christmas by referencing COVID and the Tories having a party and all the rest of it. So there again, where are we?
Or as I was saying with this, all the sensitivities now, I agree. I don't, when you hear, as you've just said, some of the dialogue in Nearest and Dearest and various things, yes, you wouldn't write it now. But I'm a historian too, and I really don't think, unless it's going to cause people grief and it's going to have people in an absolute nervous breakdown, let them see it. Because as an English teacher, when we had a book, To Kill a Mockingbird, that sort of thing, you may not read out some of the dialogue that is just kind of, horrible, but it's there in print and the kids should see it because it was said and it was used. And I think once we censor and make everything covered in bubble wrap, people forget how things were. Now, I would always say the 70s was fine. I think there's 3 of us here who survived the 70s and had a great time. But to see it in its round, you can see, I thought there were some great 70s and 60s TV programs.
For example, talking about a really great and much celebrated drama of the 70s was the television or teleplay of Alex Haley's Roots, which was the story of his, family's journey from slavery into America and all the rest of it. Now, they wouldn't dream. Absolutely, and they wouldn't dream of showing that now because of the use of the language in it. But nonetheless, it is absolutely essential that you hear that to understand exactly how a whole section of humanity was belittled, betrayed, downtrodden, and taken advantage of by the white population of Europe and the Americas. So, but they wouldn't dream of doing that now. And the educational experience it would give young people who may not pick up the book, just to see that the 70s at the same time were making Love Thy Neighbour and all sorts of other iffy stuff, was also making this too, So where are we in terms of evening things out?
John, that's a hell of a good example. You see, you're hitting on something in our childhood. I think it was on Saturday nights, Roots. And it, do you know what? I don't know if it was lecturing. I'm not sure anything it was lecturing. It was just a damn good story. And I now know, I'm so glad you mentioned it, Kunta Kinte.
Yeah.
You followed the story and it stuck with me. I don't know if it affected me on genealogy and everything, because I realized that you die and people talk about you. Because Kunta Kinte wasn't in all the episodes. And then suddenly he's got his daughter and his granddaughter. And I thought, I just remember as a kid going, oh, isn't that special that people remember you? And so I was seeing real people. I wasn't getting a lecture. I also thought it was bloody awful how they were treated. And so as a kid, it was awful to watch the slave trade do this. And then you saw them settle, and then you saw their generations develop. That has
but in terms of how that was portrayed, there's language used there which would be deemed offensive now, quite rightly. But within the historical context of, first of all, when it was made and when it's represented, I think it's important that people hear how people were treated and how we're abused. But now, because we want to bubble wrap people, we're told, no, you can't say that word, you can't hear that word, we can't use that word. Well, I dispute that, because although I just see Colin Archer writing that Bruce was disputed because Alex Haley was deemed to have made most of it up. That may be the case. Whether it was historically true or historical fiction, it was still blooming good television, and it made its mark at the time.
Really entertaining.
And it didn't. Nowadays, they just wouldn't dream of showing it for fear of offending. And I've been more offended by the fact that you're withholding a story about how, white people subjugated black people, rather than insulting people's eardrums today for the sake of hearing one or two words. I worry about that.
You see, I suppose the first time I saw, I didn't know what it was called. There's a bit of moralizing or didactic, was when I watched Dixon of Dock Green. And at the end, he would always tell you the moral of the day, or the moral of the episode. And it always looked a bit clunky, but because of the style, it was a bit avuncular and it was just ungenial, and it was just like, well, and there you go. And the trouble is now, as we've been saying, I think for this whole stream, they come in with the issue first. They come in with the politics first.
Yeah.
And just like your example, I'm sticking with it, John, the Roots example, instead of thinking we've got to do something about the slave trade, we've got to show how the British Empire is evil, just tell a damn good story and you'd get the same message across. It'll be just subtle. And I tell you what, it'll do a better job, because you won't turn people away in the first 5 minutes going, I'm not getting shouted at. The people you want to convert, or the people you want to educate, may stay with it because it's a blooming good story.
And it was one of those seminal 70s shows, the stuff that who watched it. So to the extent that if you were around at the time and watched this on the BBC, it was water cooler stuff. People talked about it
really
months and years later, and people didn't. And for many people, it opened their eyes to exactly how the brutality of the history of both the United States and the United Kingdom, in terms of the roles it played in enslaving generations of innocent people, and taking them from their own country and placed, and just everything that came with it. But you're quite right, Brendan, told that story in a very, very entertaining way and got its message across without pointing that finger.
And on my final bit on that, because you've just picked a brilliant example and I can't get it out of my head, John. The other thing is, I was a white lad from Middlesbrough and I related when I say I related to it, I engaged with the characters. I wasn't seeing myself on screen, but I related to the characters. This representation argument needs to be put to bed. It really does. You don't have to see yourself in visuals and aesthetics or anything. You need a good story. And I think, to park what you've just said, John, on Roots as a brilliant bestseller example, I wasn't seeing a white working class man on TV, but I loved it.
And in a nutshell, Brendan, the 70s, which is to be besmirched and forgotten and slagged off as the time that good taste forgot, we have Roots as an example there.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
fast forward to now, and now we have your Middlesbrough boggy, stoggy queens. As how diverse and how representative modern day television is. So there's where television is in a nutshell now. You know, what we need is more drag queens on television. Represent more drag queens, you know. And now I think there's about, 50,000 people watching this SH1T.
Yeah.
But that's in a nutshell. That's where we're at, folks.
So there you go. What me and Doug, when we were talking about this type of pilot, we were saying that in Talking TV, we'll have a topic, and I will get back to it, don't worry, as well. But we can also riff on it, and nostalgia is important. And it's New Year's Eve as well. And I just thought, you know, I have not thought about Roots for years, but as soon as John said that, it resonates. It was. Yeah. It was.
You should have thought about your Roots a long time ago.
Yes, I know. I tell you what, you get him on for the inside, but yeah, it's true. But the bestsellers were good. Do you know the other one that got me? They're always bestsellers, you know, big American bestsellers. The other one was, and that sounds strange, I know. It was a version of Valley of the Dolls. And it was all about models and actresses in Hollywood. But, you know, one had anorexia, one took drugs. And I remember being fascinated by this world where it looks glamorous, but actually they were all frail and behind the scenes. Yeah. And just as a kid, I was fascinated by this. Or, you know, Great Australia, you saw the Thornbirds. And you saw the big sweeping, you know, landscapes of Australia before you watch Neighbours, you know?
Yeah, but the landscapes of Australia were filmed in California, though, unfortunately.
So, I mean, I'll remind people where we were. That was really our we started with childhood memories, which and John's Roots was. I mean, that was classic. Basically, you were begging to stay up half the time, but not for a sneaky reason. It was just damn good TV. Regarding the arguments, I mean, in The Guardian, they were saying traditional TV is dying, being replaced by a combination of services such as short-form video players like YouTube. Hello, everybody. TikTok, Netflix, and there's other there, Paramount Plus and all the rest of it. I think that argument's overdone. I agree. Most of my day is YouTube watching old programs. You know, I mean, the lady who was doing the Spectator article was saying she sometimes gets Jonathan Creek back on. You know, she'll be watching. Me and Jamie at the moment are watching One Foot in the Grave. You know, Friday night. Yeah, Friday Night Dinner we discovered, I think, during lockdown. You know,
really? That's fantastic show.
Yeah. Now she lists here just so you can see that. In the golden age of TV, she says, of the present era, you had in The Wire, you know, The Wire, Breaking Bad, House of Cards, Succession, Peaky Blinders, Broadchurch, Happy Valley, Borgen, The Killing, The Bridge, and it goes on. Homeland. Actually, do you know, I'm aware of them. I didn't watch any of them. Isn't that fascinating?
No.
Happy Valley is good.
Yeah, I mean, I've got all these to discover in my dotage, I dare say, but I can't be bothered at the moment, you know. What is it? I mean, what are your viewing habits today? If I asked you both, because I heard you say earlier today, John, you said, you know, DVD, YouTube. Yeah. I think most of our day, if it's TV, is not current TV, and it's our choice. What do you do, John?
Well, you talked about box sets. One of my Christmas presents from my lovely husband this year was the entire box set of Dallas.
Oh.
14 seasons, 140 odd episodes,
Yay.
movies, and that'll keep me going for the next few months now. And I'll just I always got 2 boxes. I will surround myself in that. So that's me looked after. In terms of, I used to buy the Radio Times as a child. I bought it for 40 odd years, right up until I stopped buying it. And I stopped buying it purely because it wasn't, as a magazine, it wasn't cutting the mustard anymore. But I didn't feel the need to buy it because I suddenly realised I wasn't watching, television anymore in such a way. And even if I was, I didn't need a listings magazine because on so many terrestrial channels now, that and indeed satellite and cable channels, every night is the same. It follows a pattern. So on ITV, you basically got soaps followed by a game show, a reality show, and maybe a drama. On BBC, you've got the one show, a soap, a documentary hosted by whoever the flavour of the month is. So it's Stacey Dooley or Martin Kemp or Ronan Kemp or whoever it is hosting one thing. Panorama, which is now, into all intents and purposes, just That's Life, but without the funny vegetables. And maybe a reality show, be it Bake Off, Spin Off, Dance Off, Get Off, whatever the hell is one of these slots. That is essentially the linear channels on the main channels now. That's just what you get. There's no need for listings, apart from the fact you've got an EPG now, but there's no need for a listings magazine anymore because you know precisely what you're going to get. And because of that, I don't even look at BBC and IT anymore. I just assume there's not going to be anything there for me. And by word of mouth, sometimes someone might say, did you see or have you heard about? And then I might go and dip into it. But essentially, I spend most of my time watching David Suchet as Poirot, Ron Exons as Miss Margaret. I love Agatha Christie and all those sort of things. Old episodes of Frost, which I'll find on streamers. Old episodes of Midsummer Murders or Inspector Morse, that sort of stuff. If I want to have a centerpiece to my evening and say, right, we'll get an hour and a half to put in here before we go to bed, let's watch this, and George and I will sit and watch that as the centerpiece of our evening. Sometimes we'll find something modern. We liked American Horror Story, but even that's a bit hit and miss. But essentially, we will not sit down and put BBC One on or ITV or Channel 4 and expect to find something there for us, because 90% of the time there will not be anything there for us because it's the same stuff night after night after night, which interestingly is drawing a shorter and smaller audience every time you look at it. Even those once behemoths that were the soaps are now drawing shorter and smaller audiences now. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Yeah. TVs and old telly.
Well, this is it, Doug. I mean, this is the point, isn't it? And then Raymond Williams is saying, good to see him. Wallace and Gromit and Gavin and Stacey prove that if you make what people want, they will turn up live. As John is saying, we kind of know. You see a write-up of a new crime drama or something, and you go, right, I can see the issue staring at me. It's a mixed relationship. My God, we're littered with mixed relationships. The country is so different to how I'm seeing it. Nothing against it, but it's not respect.
Every Christmas commercial this year had, families which are very diverse. You know what I mean? Great. I don't know how many families they actually represent, but good for them.
It's just an interesting representation. When people are, you can't have it both ways, can you? I need to see representation on TV. I need to see myself. I need to see this. I need to see that. Well, I'm not seeing what I'm seeing out every day. I'm seeing, I'm seeing a Chinese wife with and what is going on? Nothing against the ethnicity. It's the blending, and you're going, oh, get real. Yeah. You're selling me a dud.
You hit the nail on the head, Brent. I never watch TV to see myself. You were asking about shows that we like to watch. There is a lot of good stuff on. What I like to do is find a show that has a character that I'd kind of like to spend time with. Like back in the days, you had characters like Columbo, McLeod, Kojak. Yeah. And there were characters that you want, and sometimes the stories weren't always good, but it's like Doctor Who. It wasn't always good, but if the Doctor was good, you would watch it. So I never, maybe I'm weird, but I never watched any entertainment to see myself in it. It was more like a character that I would maybe want to hang out with or spend time with. And for me, the prerequisites were kind of have a sense of humour, a bit of bravery, be a hero, or be a bit quirky.
Where did the notion
There's a
come
lot of
from
good stuff
that
on that, but I
you have
can't
to
remember
see?
the last time I watched a show to tune in for the main character. It was
Looking like you. When did we get to that
Yeah.
stage where television had to
No.
reflect ourselves back at ourselves? You know, Hollywood movies didn't do that. Television in the early 60s and 70s didn't do that. Where did the need?
Yeah.
Where did we feel the need? I need to see myself in drama. I need to know that I'm represented in order for me to fully enjoy
An
that.
issue for me.
It feels like it's, I can't put a date on it, but it feels like in the last decade or so, we had a change in how people seem to perceive themselves. The younger generations coming through, there seemed to be this idea, you know, for example, mental health goes higher in the charts of what you should prioritize. The self, the identity, you know, you've got the gender critical stuff. You suddenly start to talk about the individual rather than the family or the community. And suddenly, because it's all about me, suddenly you get demands saying, I need to see me there. Or if I, in a thumbnail, like I say, if I just say, oh, Wallace and Gromit beat Doctor Who, I'm suddenly attacked by some people as if I'm destroying a program that they think represents them. So I'm doing a personal attack.
Yeah.
No, I'm doing facts. That's all I am. And so they've taken it tribal. Suddenly it's like, oh no, you can't take that program off. You can't criticize that program because I think that's me. Well, it's still a rubbish program.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Oh, Colin Archer, well done. I mean, I know. Oh, and there was another show, quite long running, I think. Can't remember the details, but it was something about a man who travelled in a time and in a police box. Wonder what happened to that one. Yeah, the lead character. You see, you were saying, Doug, about, you know, we weren't watching TV to see ourselves, and
No,
you listed Columbo and all those characters. Isn't it funny? We didn't want to see ourselves. And now we've got Doctor Who actually destroying their main character. They're more interested in the companion. It's weird what some of these program makers are doing. I would always contest they are bored rigid. They're bored with Doctor Who, but they don't want to give up the job, so they just write it how they want. Goes back to your argument right at the beginning, John, when we talked about Why Don't You on how he changed that program. You know, they're bored. They've got no ideas, so they think, well, do you know what? I'm an older white man, so what do? I'll jump on that issue. They said the same with Stonewall. Stonewall had fought all the fights.
Yeah. Gay
rights were achieved. Everything was done, but they needed to, make themselves still important, so they jumped on the trans argument. That's what happened there. It was grifting. Reese Roder, representation should be intellectual and emotional. You mean clever, subtle, not physical and political. Otherwise, as we are seeing in real time, diversity becomes division and it becomes tribal and it gets angry. And then we all think, stuff that, I'm going to just watch my YouTube.
Yeah, it just creates more division, more segmentation, and people just turn their backs on each other. You know, interestingly, since the rise of all this sort of the promotion of this stuff on television and in cinema, we have become more and more divided. So even if we accept the fact that this stuff exists, it isn't working. It's making matters worse. So they really have to go away and look at themselves. Because essentially, what the progressive left want is not for everybody to live happily together and we're all to agree. They just want everybody to agree with them and to say that their side of things is the correct way of looking at things, irrespective of the right long since. In fact, it comes as a huge stick in the craw to people like Russell Davies that it was a Conservative government that made gay marriage legal. And interestingly, us in the United Kingdom, the highly progressive Scottish National Party, who were in control of the Scottish Parliament, refused to touch it refused to touch it and allowed Westminster to legislate for gay marriage across the entirety of the United Kingdom. And they refused to touch it because they didn't want to upset some of their base in terms of representation of gay people, gay right to get married. So that's where the left are. They pick and they choose and they decide what's in their best interest. As far as I'm concerned, the more television and television executives pursue this sort of agenda, they're producing a less watchable product. Less people are watching it, and those that are watching it are becoming more and more divided and turning against each other rather than facing each other.
And I'm going to bring in PB Prop's point because it's a good point. It's when TV started, remember, most people couldn't travel. Most people didn't really leave their area to a massive degree. People hadn't done foreign travel. And so you could sometimes see a documentary, Attenborough and stuff like that. You started to see other countries. And the TV, this magic box in the corner of your TV lounge, could show you so much that you would not. I mean, I've seen on TV, both of us have, so much of the world that I will never see. It's amazing. And space, the whole lot. And what PB Props is saying here is, I just like television when it was escapist fun, to get away from the daily rigmarole and engage with something larger than life. So, yeah, there's places you're shown that you can't go to. But then the other question I always say is, yes, you didn't want to see yourself. You just wanted to be taken away. You mentioned Dallas, John. Dallas, I mean, we're not multimillionaires, but I loved watching it.
Well, this is the whole thing. It boils down, and I hate to bring it back to Doctor Who Christmas special and the COVID thing. You watch Doctor Who on a Christmas night to be taken on a whirlwind of adventure, to have thrills and spills, scares, the lot. Why on earth would you want to bring even a small section of your audience back down to earth with a horrible bump about something that happened in their families 4 years ago? Why would you want to do that? I just don't understand it. Unless it's you thinking, I have absolute control here to be smug, to be smart, to be clever, because I'm Stephen Moffat and I'm going to do this. Well, you wouldn't do it in other respects to insult other sections of the audience, but he's quite happy to do it when it comes to, a certain section of the audience. It's just absolutely thoughtless. And it just sums up exactly what's wrong with modern day television. They're not entertaining anymore. It's
they're not.
And John, to add to your point, he while he was happy to go on the COVID and jumped on that, he thought he thought he was being clever, having the doctor talk to Trev and patronize somebody who was of slightly limited intellect. But that's okay. And you think, do you know what? The more you try and ram your progressive ideas down our throats, the more you expose your inconsistencies. Bit like our Prime Minister at the moment. Be less pious and just deliver.
But it's there. It stares you in the face. Someone in the chat mentioned guns and wheelchairs. So the sonic screwdriver can't be pointed anymore because it resembles a gun. But a young 13-year-old can weaponize his Segway to be firing bullets left, right, and centre. A disabled Unix scientific advisor can weaponize her wheelchair to fire bullets and kill people, and that's all fine. So it shows you within their heads there is no consistency. There's absolutely no forward planning. It's just, I'll say this because it makes me look virtuous.
Yeah, exactly. And it is grifting, and we were saying this point yesterday, John, weren't we? We said Stephen Moffat, I dare say, I hope it hasn't happened in his family, but if something personal happened to their family during COVID and lockdown, you probably don't want to raise it because you realize how raw it is. And we had people on our thread saying, I can't watch that. I couldn't watch that bit of Doctor Who. It just brought bad memories. God, and yet they were tuning in. They were tuning in to watch escapist Doctor Who drama. And what they got was, he was stuck for a year, caretaking in a rundown hotel in London, boring as hell. It was a time hotel. He could have gone anywhere in the history of time. And Stephen Moffat, this clever writer, decided, we'll stick him in a hotel for a year, mopping up the stairs.
But more to the point, Brendan, it was just bad telly. You want to sit down with across the generations from grandma and grandpa right down to the grandkids and be entertained, as in thrills, spills, escapism. It didn't even do that. What you had was a lot of people talking at each other for scene after scene after scene. So, as I've said before on your streams, for all the Disney money, I don't see it. I just don't see it. Somewhere along the line, they had to insert a Tyrannosaurus Rex and do something funny with that for 2 or 3 minutes to show off a bit of cash. But other than that, where was the jeopardy? Where was the escapism? Where was the story? Where was the absolute fun you should get from a Doctor Who special? If you look back to Voyage of the Dan, I don't know if that everybody's favourite, but it did exactly what it was meant to do. It provided jeopardy, entertainment, and escapism on a Christmas day. This did none of those things. So it was just badly written hokum. And the reason why probably it was so badly written is because it was written by an author who thinks he's smug and clever, submitted to a showrunner who thinks he's dead clever and smart as well. And there you go, folks, that'll do. And we're all supposed to be grateful for it. Well, we're not anymore.
Well, Majors Guild, super chat here. I'm so grateful. Thank you. Now, what are your comments on this? The industry is run now by communists and happy people do not join revolutions. The division is intentional. Wokeness is Marxism in sheep's clothing. Don't sit on the fence, Majors Guild. I mean, go on, Doug.
No, I was just saying, don't hold back. He's not sitting on the fence in that comment, is he?
but I can see where he's coming from, because there is a point when you just think, why are you doing this? You said a while back, John, that you don't watch ITV much, and we don't. And it's not we don't sit down at the kitchen table going, there'll be no ITV in this house. It's just we can see the diet that's on ITV. ITV is pretty bad in its agenda.
Yeah.
The BBC has got its agenda, but now and again a sneak program comes through. But yes, Sky is just as bad.
Although there's an awful lot of words going on there in terms of what
Major Skill
has just said there. But essentially, there's an element of truth here, because the economic argument has been lost, by the left. I mean, Marxism, communism, it lost. That is gone. That's it. But Marxism and communism are now fighting that cultural war, in terms of the left homogenizing people, so we want everybody to be the same, we want everybody to think the same, we want everybody to believe the same. That's essentially, I think, what he's saying there. And there's a huge element of truth to that. The left have changed tactics now. They no longer deal, as I say, with the economics of the matter. You look at what Keir Starmer's up to now, and what Jeremy Corbyn back in 2 elections ago was suggesting was nothing to do really with fundamentally changing the economic system. It was to do with the cultural system and how the left can, if you like, subsume us all to one amorphous mass. That's essentially what's going on here. I think that's what he means. Yeah. And while it might be fairly extreme, it's a path they want to take us on.
It is, yeah. We call it a slippery slope. Lady of Traken is new to watching this, so great to see you, Lady of Traken.
Is it? It's not Nissa.
Is it Nissa? First time. I'm sorry. My condolences, Lady of Traken, because Traken doesn't exist anymore. Excuse me. Remember that sad Brit in Logopolis? Oh.
She got over it very quick, though, didn't she?
Yes,
she got over it very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Listen, I mean, 5 billion gone, 5 billion Trakenites gone. Next minute,
John, there was no trigger warning in the TARDIS. When he had the scanner and they went, "Oh, Traken's no longer there." He didn't say, "By the way, you might get upset by this scanner." He's just
5 billion Trakenites down, and this.
Yeah, there you go. And goes off with some strange man with a bracelet. I don't know. But sorry, Lady of Traken. First time I've joined live, and it's a very interesting conversation. That's down to me. John just joins in now and again. He's very.
I'm just a stooge.
Yeah, he's. if I'm honest, I don't think the Doctor in a domestic situation works, especially with a magic brush on the stairs as if it's Harry Potter wand. No.
Oh, that was terrible.
And yeah, look, Lady of Traken says, I wanted more time, Hotel. She tuned in, she didn't get it. There you go. There's the problem with TV. PB Props, I'm going to have to get you on again. I'm sorry, PB Props. I've been trying to contact you. With respect to Mr. Moffat, I've never seen his work as clever. I did like Douglas's Cancelled. I did like that, but that was an adult drama. Let's not conflate convoluted with clever, as they are not the same. I will say PB Props, and I wonder what the lads think. I am sick of hearing timey-wimey. I am sick of hearing the long way round. I'm sick of hearing these shortcuts. It's like there's a nudge and a wink. Oh, that was a good line. Well, yeah, do it 20 times. It's like Geronimo. No. Alonzi. No.
Over it.
Over it.
Totally over
Archer Colin, I've seen a few people complain about Shooty's indecision. When I heard about this bit of the story, I think Moffat was trying to recall the duck pond scene in the 11th hour. Gosh, I'll have to watch again. I think we actually did a review of that. I can't remember.
I'm not watching that again.
Actually, you're not supposed to, are you? Let's be honest. It's supposed to be so good the first time round.
I'm not watching that Christmas special again, ever.
Now, Major's Guild is coming back with a super chat. Not only the BBC, the entire industry, large companies are happy to burn billions of quid to push their agenda. You were kind of saying that, John, though, weren't you? Really, you were saying they've got their quotas, they've got their policies. Most of the industry now in the media is of a certain political leaning or pretending they are. Until something happens and they'll all jump.
It's like what you said about Stonewall having to go and fight, and you fight. The left have to fight, and you fight now. And that happens to be the cultural fight. It's fighting now, to make sure the message is given across in terms of what they perceive to be their vision of society. And unfortunately, a lot of artistic people tend to be on the left of politics. I used to count myself on legally left-wing on a whole lot of social issues too. It's not a bad thing. What is a bad thing is when you don't allow all thoughts and feelings and opinions to be represented, and try and pretend that the world is something that it isn't. Especially when you're trying to represent that world to the viewing public by virtue of a TV movie or television series, or even, as we mentioned earlier, television adverts. You're not reflecting the way, just because you reflect the world the way you would like it to be in terms of your movies and your TV shows and your television commercials, doesn't mean it's going to make it any different. You're just pretending to yourself and, as I said, turning people against it. As we discovered with some of the conversations we had about television earlier, that if you wish to get people around to your way of thinking, entertain them, inform them, and that way you can educate them, and you may well win them round to your side. Don't point a finger at them.
Well, as Sean, also from Middlesbrough, says here, the Doctor Who special committed the cardinal sin. It was boring. And I've just put the stats back up there. In the first 10 minutes, where actually they just repeated the trailer, and then you had some schmaltzy music. Nothing much happened. And the jeopardy started with the man and the suitcase in a darker lit bar at 11 minutes. And so in the first 10 minutes, dull as ditch water. You then had 3 quick deaths, which is great. Good Doctor Who. But then that was it. And so, yes, it was boring. I would, and what a shame that nonsense about let's just, do you know what? Let's make a Christmas episode of Doctor Who be about him being a caretaker and he's sorting out the sink. Who thought that was entertaining? You've just shown a dinosaur and you're going to show him blooming unblocking the sink and doing a weak joke. What is this? A year ago, they did the joke about the sink plunger in Destination Scar or Children in Need. And then they do the sink plunger again. I mean, when a program is taking the mick out of itself on a regular basis, why should people watch?
Well, when did the Doctor ever get a magic wand to make a mop stairs?
Exactly.
I don't think so. Doctor can be whatever you want it to be. We've been told that, particularly by this new breed of showrunner and producer, because it suits their narrative. But I just didn't get this idea that the Doctor's there with a mop You know, like Fantasia
Yeah.
and Mickey Mouse and all this sort of stuff.
That's exactly what it
That's
was.
not Doctor Who. You know, the Doctor's a
No, it
hard-working
wasn't.
Time Lord. He doesn't tend to find the shortcuts. He does the graft to do the hard work to get to where he needs to be. So if the Doctor had to mop the stairs, he would do. He absolutely would do. So
I don't understand the
that's
whole
not the
plot
Doctor.
anyway. As I've said before, David Tennant was just around the corner with a working TARDIS, so he didn't even need to stay there.
Yeah.
They conveniently forgot about that.
Of course, that had there been, as I said, a proper forward plan by Davis when he initially said
Exactly.
the bi-generation thing happens. The whole bi-generation thing is just an excuse to allow him to use, as I think we have now discovered, past Doctors in their older forms now, Pete McCoy or Baker or Davison, you know, in the Tales of the TARDIS things. He may well have had universe plans for that, who knows? But that was the whole bi-generation thing to allow, I think, him to use those Doctors as they are today in whatever form he chose to use them. But he never thought through the consequences. Well, where, apart from in the TARDIS, does the Doctor spend most of his time? Mostly on current day Earth. And when you've got another Doctor sitting there with a working TARDIS, where you're also there, it just throws everything into disarray. And viewers remember that. I think as fans, viewers remember that because it was only a year ago that this was introduced to them. So they'll be sitting with that thinking, hold on, this doesn't make any sense to me. So this isn't thought through. And as you said, Brendan, the word is being grifted by grifters who are just putting it in, taking the money and flying like thieves in the night.
Well, because this is also talking TV as a wider thing. I mean, like I said, we'll dip current and past. As you are starting to suss, my segments when they do appear will have. I'm trying to put a Carry On movie poster to link to a certain TV moment in our lives. So here's the next question to the thread and to John and to Doug. I've called it Carry On Loving. And it's basically when we watch TV and we realized we were what we were. We realized that we had hormones. We realized, you know, it was no longer watching Rent-A-Ghost. It was all very.
Don't get too excited.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing Luby Lou get in the basket with Andy Pandy. I thought nothing, but you know. They all went to bed together. That was
they did, and nobody thought anything about it.
Exactly. So my question is to the thread and to you two, which is, and keep it. Well, it's not keeping it, but I'm keeping it clean. It's going to be funny, I'm sure. Which is when you ever watched TV in the past and you did feel represented. You thought, yeah, I feel like that. Oh, yeah, she's my type. Or he's my type. Oh, I like that. Oh, you know what I mean? When you start to go, oh. Have you got any moments? I'm trying to think.
Oh, we had a show in Australia. I don't know if you guys ever got it over there, called Number 96. It was the early to mid 70s, and it was a really bad soap opera set in an apartment building, but it was very much cashing in on the relaxed censorship of the day. There was lots of nudity. And for any excuse whatsoever that somebody's top would come off. And I remember watching this show and then having my parents in the room and just not knowing where to look. It was eye-opening for me, but also quite uncomfortable for them, I would imagine, too. So that's certainly a moment I remember. Several moments,
Mad Mackham says, this is when I can easily tell when people are straight or gay, because he says Charlie's Angels. Well, it can't be for Charlie's voice. So, yes, awoke many things. I remember so many girls. My aunts, as nearly said uncles, my aunts all wanted the Farrah Fawcett hairstyle. Yes, I mean, it was a big thing, wasn't it? Now, John, this is how personal I can get. Not with you, don't worry. Okay. But John, there was an old program. When I say an old program, it was in colour. I think it was maybe BBC One. It was on about 9:30. My mum was out, so my dad let me stay up and watch it. And it all went a bit weird because it was something like Tales of the Unexpected, or it was a one-off play. And there was a moment near the end, right, John, when there was a younger lad, let's say he was about 20, and he was with an older man, and the older man had gone into the bathroom, and I was just sat there innocently, little Catholic lad, a teenager, going, all right, okay. Then suddenly the camera went back onto the bed, and he was naked, and all you saw was his bum, and he was laying on the bed saying, I'm ready. And I remember turning to my dad saying, what's all? You know, is it a bicycle rack? What's this? So I said,
question time.
Yes. Is that where Robin Day puts his dicky bow? But I just I just thought, what? I didn't get it. I was so innocent. And that my dad, I could see my dad going, oh, well. But once my dad mentioned it slightly, he wouldn't go into detail, obviously, but my dad mentioned a bit, and then I started to think, really? Oh, anyway, there you go, John. Any little
program though? That you haven't sit down with the program.
I wish I knew. I'm looking.
I think I know what it was. If it was 9:30, that would be a Play for Today time, and there was. Yeah. I remember because you and I are roughly similar ages. I remember there was a Play for Today called, I think it was called Coming Out, and it was Anton Rogers and played an older man that was younger, fell in it too, and there was a bed scene in it, very discreetly done, and he goes out and go to the bed and the bed pads back. I remember the scene of that, so it may well have been that I can identify that memory for you, and it was all about someone's burgeoning sexuality and what have you as well. Yeah. But again, that would have been one of the few times that I saw something on that too. But you know what? The British weren't very good at it. Any sort of the American shows were better for that. They had much better barrel-chested, hairy-chested men to come. But, you know, while we were getting Harold Meeker and Rent-A-Ghost, the rest of the world was getting Steve Austin throwing his chest at you. And this is much to my shame here, as much as Season 18 and The Leisure Hive and all that crew is my great, over on the other side was quite the most delectable vision of the time in the early 80s was Gil Gerard as Buck Rogers in the 20th century in skin tight white. And I'm telling you, The Leisure Hive had to be blooming good to hold me, to stop me straying him in skin tight white.
It's funny when you mention Buck Rogers. I felt more represented by Twiggy. That Twiggy.
No, I think he would have been more represented by Wilfred Hyde White. You know,
so
some old fart. Huh?
Now, because I've asked everybody about their first burgeoning hormonal moments with TV, I've got to shout some of them out because it'll represent us all, and we all need to be represented. So, Archer Collin, probably my first actual crush was the lovely Elizabeth Adair on the Temora People. We had Reese Roder, Terry Hatcher as Lois Lane in the 90s.
Yes.
Neville, Stephanie Powers. Is that Heart to Heart?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what a gorgeous woman.
Yeah. I saw Claude, here it is, Perry, when he was 15. I suppose, was it Planet of Fire when she was swimming? And there was a dubious angle of the camera, wasn't there?
None more dubious than the regeneration scene where Peter Davison was upstaged by Perry's boobies.
Yeah, I know. Well, did he say the line, I don't want to go? He probably was going, I'd like to hang around a bit longer, please. I mean, now, okay, sorry, Mad Mackham, you're discounting the sexiness of the character John Bosley. Now, you were talking about, Yeah, it's true. I know. I was being very naughty. I was assuming too many things. Mad Mackham, also, and don't judge me, Mrs. Cunningham in Happy Days. Oh, an older woman.
I'm judging.
Oh, older woman, Mrs. Robinson.
Pennies, wasn't it? Those pennies.
Oh, yes. So, yes. Divine and Dragon. He had. I love this. This is revealing everything. I had a terrible crush on Xenia Merton in Space 1999. Who was that?
She was the young actress who was in Marco Polo, young Asian actress.
Yes,
beautiful.
Regular Space 1999, but she played a part in, I forget the part she played, forgive me, in Marco Polo, but that's that actress. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I know who she is now. Yeah. So let's have a look. It's important to get a few different in. Mark and Mindy, yes, a few people like that. The girl from Uncle, says Neville, not the man from Uncle.
Stephanie Powers, yeah.
Yeah. Ah, yeah. She was in that, wasn't she? Stephanie, I loved
Yeah.
Richard Hatch from Battlestar Galactica. So yeah, I mean, this is when TV is important. You know, without teaching us and sitting down saying, right, we're going to do sex education now, or we're going to teach you what your hormones do. You just suddenly go, oh, aye. Oh, that's quite nice.
Oh, aye.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, aye. But yeah, I mean, Doctor Who, since I was a gay lad, did not necessarily serve me well. You know,
Okay, there was, well, to be honest, that time of year now, the anniversary of The Face of Evil, there was a lovely character, topless men in The Face of Evil. There was one in particular, his name escapes me, was particularly beautiful. I remember that giving me an moment. And
so
thank you. We've now got the name of the character that Zena Merton played in Marco Polo, thanks to SG. It was
yes.
Bing Joe.
Pinchot. Yeah. So yeah, and Diana Rigg, of course, Dead Man's mentioned. How can we forget Dame? Oh no, Dame Diana Rigg. She was good. I loved her in the George Lazenby Bond movie. She was lovely in that. I mean, she was a damn good actress as well. I mean, I even liked her in Game of Thrones.
There's a film called The Assassination Bureau with Oliver Reed. She's fantastic in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brilliant movie. Check it out,
She also featured in the Poirot movie I watched over Christmas there, Evil Under the Sun, where she plays. Yeah. She has a great sparring relationship with Maggie Smith in that. Fantastic.
Now, while we're still on the theme, might as well stick on the theme for a second.
We're on to Dick now, are we?
Yeah, Carry On Dick. I couldn't. I went for the Carry On. I went for the Carry On Emmanuel movie poster, but it's a little bit. So I went for Carry On Dick because it serves its message, which is. And you kind of touched on it, Doug, but, you know, when we all were watching TV and it was extremely embarrassing, too exposing or something, you know, you thought, oh, my God. Or the other version is, John might remember this. You remember when Channel 4 did the red triangle?
Yes, yeah.
And
that was marketing.
I found it so helpful because suddenly I thought I must watch that. And
that was a great marketing strategy. You put a red triangle and everybody coming in off the pub Friday night think, oh, boobies and willies, let's watch that.
So for anybody who doesn't know, in Britain in the 1980s.
Sorry, Doug's asking what it's all about. I'll let you tell me.
I was just saying, Doug. I was just saying, the red triangle was on Channel 4, and it was kind of before the Watershed. We have a 9 o'clock Watershed, or we did do, and basically to get it past the censors in a way and to give them a bit of immunity, Channel 4, which was a new channel then, a bit more risque, it isn't now. They would now and again normally a movie would have a red triangle by and that would indicate to parents that it was sexual or very adult content, something like that. I mean, there was one bloody movie I remember. I tuned in thinking, oh, I might see something. And I saw a man in bed with 2 zebra. And I thought, oh, no, I stayed up for this. But then it was a French movie. But then I thought, what?
Was the zebra cross?
I know. So, you know, sometimes it can go wrong. You stay up, you record it, you grab the video off your dad and you try and sneak it on, and it's just a zebra in bed with a man. I don't know. I don't think there was any plot. I don't know if the zebra felt represented. I'm not sure. But anyway, so yes. Doug, have you got another example when you thought, I mean, because you're a dad as well, so therefore, were there moments when you're with your parents or when you're with your kids and you thought, oh my God?
Yeah, we have Channel 4 is probably similar. We have a station here called SBS, which is a multicultural station, but they show a lot of French and foreign cinema, which is some of it is almost soft-core porn, really. And I've certainly been in the room with my kids watching maybe
What's it called?
foreign movies, I would say, where someone disrobes, but perfectly in keeping with the plot, and it's very uncomfortable. And then conversation has to be had. So yes, there's certainly a few of those examples.
Well, you see, I mean, I said embarrassing things. I'll come to John now, but I remember when the Star Beast was shown, and parents were saying we don't really want to be put in the situation of having to explain, why this character Rose Noble and dead naming and everything. Why are you doing this to us? Now, John, have you got any examples you are happy to share?
Yeah, we were tucked up in bed, as I told you, Sweeney, usually with a blonde, lovely chick and her boobies at Dennis Waterman. That was usually used to bury. I always remember that whenever anything came on television that I was vaguely embarrassed about, I always had handy either newspaper or Radio Times, and you could pretend to be reading it than whatever was on television. So you missed it. So if a pair of boobs flashed through, or if a bare bum sort of what was about, or somebody was simulating sex on a particularly unexciting episode of Zed Cars or Dixon and Doug Green, you could pick this up and go. So you'd missed it. So that way you were saving your own embarrassment, but saving my parents' embarrassment as well, because as far as they were concerned, they didn't. It
never happened.
Yeah, I remember one particular thing where I embarrassed myself, however, when we were watching an episode of a quiz show. I think it was 3-2-1 of blessed memory, where Ted Rogers asked a contestant, what was the name of the sweet-smelling substance used at religious services? Now, the answer to that is, of course, incense. But I shouted out, incest.
Oh, you did.
I'm my family all looking at me thinking, what does he know about that word? And I'm sort of shouting, incense. I meant incense, and drawing terrible attention to myself in the process. So, yeah. But for those young people ever watching now with parents or family, you'd be embarrassed, just have a handy book, newspaper or Radio Times handy, and you just pretend you didn't see it.
I know.
It covers everything.
I mean, there's a double whammy here, because I will ask you as a final roundup almost a favorite advert or memorable advert, and I'm going to conflate the two, and you'll see what I mean. The Nick Cayman in the laundrette Levi's advert was, I thought, a disgrace to us lads who were still at school, because we were happily wearing Y fronts and feeling very secure when we're on the bus going home. And suddenly the drawbridge is down, and suddenly we're in big doo-doo because Nick Cayman has made boxer shorts trendy. And suddenly everybody has to wear boxer shorts, which, as you know, unfortunately means your front door's open and there's not much you can do about it if the bus is just trying to act like some sort of spin dryer. So basically, I remember thinking,
I don't want to know. Would you stop this, please? Are you finding this therapeutic? Just stop it. Stop it now.
I'm just thinking, so you've got the embarrassment to TV, and you've got, why did they invent boxer shorts?
I missed this bit.
Boxer shorts, you're thinking, oh God, I hated boxer. So that advert so changed everything, and it changed what the lads had to wear when we're in PE. You think, so yes, there you go. The power of TV, the power of advertising, etc., etc., etc.
Finished? Is it over?
Well, the other thing is, John, when even just the other day, when you think you're burning and you're blushing so strongly, and
what were you doing on top of the bus that embarrassed yourself this time?
Oh God, I just remember. Well, I mean, and this is just when you're watching TV with your mum and dad, and of course, this is it, family TV when we all sat together. Yes, your mum or dad, in the days when there was a remote, they would maybe hover with it in case, or in the days when they'd switch it over and you had to run to the telly and press the button. But basically, remember those moments when your mum and dad are sat there, and that's 3 people. I've got a strange family.
That's a very diverse family you had there.
I know, a blended family, but so yeah, my mum, dad, and mum, dad.
And your gender neutral parent, yes.
So that moment, because you can't leave the room because you're wearing boxer shorts under your. So if you stood up, you're in trouble. So basically, you sat there going, "Oh God!" And then actually, your dad might keep it on, and you're going, and then in those days, your mum and dad might say, "Shall we have a cup of tea?"
The multi-purpose newspaper book just comes into play, so you can move about the place and just take it with you, and that way you've covered a multitude of embarrassments. And in some cases, you would only need a very small book.
I was going to say I needed the Encyclopedia Britannica, but
I
was a Sunday broadsheet.
Scattercushion will help. You don't have a book, you just Scattercushion.
So, Doug, is there an advert that's, in a way, I've talked about how an advert was embarrassing.
Well, you've just talked about having the half-heart so many times. In so many public places. That's what you talked about.
Well, I suppose I have a similar story, and I don't think anyone is familiar with this, but in Australia there was a very iconic commercial that was the first appearance of Elle Macpherson. It was for a drink called Tab, which you probably remember. It's basically the same as Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of her basically bouncing down the beach in a very ample bikini.
Like Baywatch.
And my hormones went over time. And it's basically what launched Elle Macpherson's career. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. It's a very, very interesting commercial. So that's my story, and I needed a Scattercushion for that one.
Well, this is why I like these segments, because it's it's the association of a memory or a moment.
You're a pervert.
Now PB Props remembers watching The Fly with his mum and dad and his grandma, so there were 3 there as well. And suddenly there was a raunchy scene. The scramble for the remote.
Oh, no.
And the fast forward button was immense. But have you ever pressed the button in the wrong, and it's gone in the wrong direction, and it shows it again, and it's like, and anyway, if it's a sex scene and you do it in fast forward, it just looks like Benny Hill. But
Carry on moving,
So yes, the Flake advert was extremely sexual.
Yeah.
Oh, we had those too. Yeah.
Because yes, only the crumbliest, flakiest chocolate. I remember, obviously, gay man here, but I do think the advert when she was in the bath and it was operatic music, and she wrecked the bathroom because the water overflew, and you don't have a chocolate flake in a hot bath, do you? Surely,
not normally.
No,
it depends on you want to tickle your fancy or not.
So yes, I would have thought, a red-blooded male watching that. Yes, it's very metaphorical, I dare say, as Austin Powers used to do. Remember, and Austin Powers took the mick out of all of those. And actually, when I was thinking of the Bionic Woman, he surely got the fembots from that, didn't he? And she went against the Bionic, other kind of droids or whatever it was. I do remember that. Yeah. Well, do you know what? We've been talking for nearly 2 hours, and so we're going to wrap, lads. But can I just say, I think the thread are saying to us that this is kind of a nostalgia fest that we all need. John,
there's heaps of people there. It's fantastic.
It's been very enjoyable, and of course, you're about to hit New Year in Australia, so Happy New Year to everybody in Australia as it's about to happen. Yeah. John, hopefully this has been enjoyable, memory lane job.
Oh, yeah, I know it's been quite cathartic for you, John, burden yourself with all the stuff from your children and dirty my head with it all. I hope you're happy.
Yeah. It's cheaper than therapy.
It is cheaper, much cheaper. I feel sullied.
Well, I'm happy that I've unburdened and I've now made your day worse. There you go. My mission is complete.
Absolutely. Yes, I hope. But at least I can say in a few years' time, I can say that all happened last year.
Yeah.
Move forward.
Behind you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is a nostalgia day, and that's why it's a bit bittersweet, New Year's Eve. So we thought this would be a nice day to do a pilot of nostalgia. Raymond Williams here. My mother always put the kettle on, which was fortunate when we all watched The Postman Always Rings Twice, the Jack Nicholson, Jessica Lange version. Was that acting? I know all the subtle things that families do. But what's fascinating is when they say family TV's died and the kids are all in the bedroom watching things on their phones instead, it's a shame, isn't it? Because while it might have been embarrassing sitting downstairs with your relatives, I also think it's what you needed to go through.
Absolutely. It's a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Whether it's your back passage or not.
Well,
rite of passage.
Yeah, especially that episode. I mean, honestly, I didn't know what I was looking at when all of a sudden this bed scene happens. I'm going, oh my God. And then, of course, I walk straight into it saying, Dad, what's happening here?
Yeah.
And of course, the credits came up and my dad was going, poor old dad.
Poor old dad.
Well, yeah. So Claude is saying, and Michael, I hope you're better. I really enjoyed this one. Sorry I couldn't be on properly, but yeah, get yourself better, and of course you'll be on. People, this was fun, says Dead Man. Happy New Year to you. Yeah, I mean, it's been fun, and that's the whole point. It's talking TV. We started with Doctor Who and the ratings, and we've ended up talking about iffy scenes. I don't know how that happened. John, it's your fault.
I'm quite happy to take responsibility. Quite happy to take responsibility for your perversion.
So all I will say is I've been very polite today. I've not asked for subscriptions or likes, but please can everyone remember to like and subscribe, and we might do it again, lads, eh?
I promise. Next time round,
in the thread, if you want more of this, let us know if you want to do this again, because we'd love to, but it's all up to you guys whether you want to watch it.
And I might appear without moustache next time and get naked.
Yeah, please do. And a beret.
Yeah. Give us a super chat of 75,000 quid, and he'll shave it off. Yeah. Anyway, lads, have a good rest of the day. Everyone in the thread.
You too, Doug.
Everybody's about to hit New Year at some point today.
We do this again.
Right. I'll just conclude now. Yeah, the Australians, the New Zealanders have probably just hit New Year. So Happy New Year to everybody in the Southern Hemisphere. Japan, I saw time skills there as well. And of course, everybody else, have a good rest of the day. And you will see the Sense Free in the New Year. And you might see Talking TV in the New Year. Goodbye, everybody.
Happy New Year.